You check your bank account on a Tuesday, and something feels off. You were disciplined last month. You cooked at home, you skipped the weekend trips, you even canceled that gym subscription you never used. Your balance is almost exactly the same as last month. But when you walk into a grocery store, something doesn't add up. Eggs cost more, ground beef is up, even the store brand pasta is $1 more than it was 6 months ago. And the government tells you inflation is running at around 3%. So why does everything feel like it costs 15% more? Here's the thing nobody in mainstream finance wants to say out loud. There is a silent tax working against you every single year. It's not on your paycheck, it's not on your tax return, and most people will never even know it's happening until it's too late. My name is Joey, and on this channel, I want to teach you how to save, invest, use, and grow your money so you can have more freedom and retire earlier without depending on the government. Subscribe to the channel and like this video.
Let's talk about the number the government publishes every month. The CPI, or Consumer Price Index. This is the official measure of inflation in the United States. And for decades, most Americans have trusted it as the truth about what things cost. But here's the thing. The CPI has been redesigned multiple times since the 1970s. In the 1980s and 1990s, economists introduced two major changes, something called hedonic adjustments and something called substitution effects. Hedonic adjustments basically mean that if your laptop gets faster, the government counts that as a price decrease, even if you paid more for it. Substitution effects mean that if steak gets too expensive, they assume you'll just buy chicken instead. So the reported cost of living looks lower on paper. Convenient, right? Here's what's actually happening. According to research from the American Institute for Economic Research and multiple academic studies, the real cost of living for middle-class Americans, rent, food, healthcare, car insurance, childcare, has been growing at 6 to 8% annually over the last decade. Not 3%, not 4%, 6 to 8%.
Now let's talk about what that actually means for you. If you're earning $100,000 a year and your salary grows by 3%, you got a raise. Congratulations. But if the actual cost of everything you buy went up 6%, your real purchasing power just declined by 3%. You technically make more money, and you can afford less than before. This is not a small thing. This is not a rounding error. This is wealth destruction happening in slow motion, year after year, to people who are doing everything right by traditional advice. You're saving, you're working, you're watching the number go up, but the silent tax is eating you alive underneath the surface.
Okay, let's get into the actual math, because this is where things get real. Let's say you have $50,000 sitting in a traditional savings account. Your bank is offering you a 2% annual interest rate, which is actually above average for most big banks. You leave it alone for 10 years. Never touch it. At 2% compounded annually, after 10 years, you have about $60,950. Sounds okay, right? You made almost $11,000 doing nothing. Now apply real inflation at 6% per year. To maintain the same purchasing power that $50,000 has today, in 10 years, you would need $89,542. You have $60,950. You needed $89,542. The gap is nearly $29,000. That's not a theoretical number. That's the equivalent of a year of groceries, a car repair fund, a major medical bill, evaporated from your purchasing power without a single dollar leaving your account. Now let's look at a 20-year timeline, because this is where the average American is really getting hurt.
The Federal Reserve reports that the median American between ages 35 and 44 has about $60,000 in savings. Using real inflation at 6% annually, $60,000 today would need to become approximately $192,000 in 20 years just to buy the same things it buys right now. With a 2% savings rate, your $60,000 becomes about $89,000.
you're over $100,000 short in real purchasing power. You didn't lose money. The number went up, but you lost ground. That's the silent tax. Now, here's the flip side. The S&P 500 has returned an average of 10.3% annually over the last 50 years. Even adjusted against 6% real inflation, that's still 4.3% real annual growth. Positive, compounding, above the treadmill.
Take that same $60,000 and invest it in a simple S&P 500 index fund 20 years ago. Today, it would be worth approximately $404,000. After accounting for 6% annual real inflation, that's still roughly $126,000 in real purchasing power. You more than doubled your real wealth. The difference between putting $60,000 in a savings account versus putting $60,000 in an index fund over 20 years is the difference between losing over $100,000 in purchasing power and gaining $66,000 in purchasing power. That's a $166,000 swing in the same time period with the same starting money. The market isn't perfect. It drops. It scares you. But over time, it is your best legal defense against the silent tax. So if the math is this clear, why isn't everyone doing it? Because the silent tax is invisible. There's no bill that arrives at your door that says, inflation reduced your savings by $2,800 this month. There's no notification. There's no moment of shock. It just happens quietly, gradually, like water rising around your ankles so slowly you don't notice until you're up to your waist. Behavioral economists call this loss aversion with delayed feedback. We respond intensely to immediate losses. Your stock drops 10% in a single day and your stomach drops with it. But slow, persistent losses, we adapt. We rationalize. We tell ourselves prices were always kind of high or that things are fine.
There's also something called the money illusion, the psychological tendency to think in nominal dollars instead of real purchasing power. Your salary went from $80,000 to $83,600? That feels great, a 4.5% raise. But if your actual cost of living went up $5,500 that year, you're poorer. The number looks better. The reality is worse. And then there's anchoring. Most people anchor to the government's official number. The Fed says inflation is 3.2%. That's not so bad. And they make their financial decisions based on a number that may not reflect their actual life, their actual groceries, their actual healthcare costs going up every single year.
So, what do you actually do about this? Let me give you 5 things you can start today. First, stop letting idle cash destroy your purchasing power. Your emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of expenses, belongs in a high-yield savings account. The best ones right now are paying between 4% and 5% APY. That barely keeps pace with official inflation, but it's infinitely better than the 0.5% the big banks quietly give you. Beyond your emergency fund, every dollar sitting in cash is losing ground every single day. Second, invest in assets that historically outpace real inflation. A simple S&P 500 index fund, VTI, VOO, or FXAIX, gives you exposure to 500 of the largest American companies. This isn't active trading. This is owning a piece of the American economy. And over 50 years, it has returned an average of 10.3% annually. That's your first line of defense against the silent tax.
Third, use tax-advantaged accounts to compound faster. Max out your Roth IRA, $7,000 per year in 2025, $8,000 if you're 50 or older. Your money grows completely tax-free. On top of that, if your employer matches your 401k contributions, that is an instant 100% return before the market does anything. Capture every dollar of that match before doing anything else. Fourth, think in real returns, not nominal ones. Every time someone tells you your savings account is earning interest,
Ask yourself, what is the inflation-adjusted return? If you're earning 4% and real inflation is 6%, your real return is -2%. You're not earning, you're losing at a slower rate. That's a crucial distinction. Fifth, inflation-proof your biggest budget categories. Healthcare, housing, and education inflate at 7% to 10% per year, far above average. An HSA for healthcare expenses grows tax-free and rolls over every year. For housing, follow the 28% rule. Your housing cost should never exceed 28% of your gross monthly income. If it does, you're financing someone else's wealth instead of building your own. The silent tax will never stop. But now you know it's there, and knowing it exists and acting on it is the difference between building real wealth and running in place for the next 20 years.
If this video made you look at your savings account differently, that's exactly the point. Here's your action step for this week. Open your savings account, find the interest rate they're actually paying you, and run the math. Take your current balance, subtract 6% per year, and see what it's worth in 10 years in real purchasing power. Then ask yourself, is that the future you're okay with? If not, you know what to do. Invest, compound, outrun the silent tax. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next video where I break down exactly how to build an index fund portfolio from scratch, even on a $500 per month budget. And drop your savings account interest rate in the comments below. I want to see how much the silent tax is costing you right now.